Welcome to For the Win, ladies and gentlemen. And on the show today, we are doing something a little bit different. We're doing a rapid fire show. News for everything. Pretty much we're covering all aspects of life today. We'll take about an hour of your time, but once we're done, I swear to you, you will be incredibly more informed than when you started in an hour from now. So please stay tuned, and it's time to show you what the Spencer Welch Radio Network has for you in store today. It's going to be some pretty interesting stuff. All right, let's start the clock, and let's get right into it because we have a lot of stuff to get into. All right, now we start at the top with the budget fight, where President Donald Trump is going to be making a significant request for border wall funds and seeking money to stand up Space Force as a new branch of the military in the White House budget being released next week, an administration official said, according to the AP. So for the first time, Trump plans to stick with strict spending caps opposed years ago, even though lawmakers have largely avoided them with the new budget deals, and that could trigger a showdown in Congress as the budget debate does continue. Because we're going to have to see a lot of the showdown in Congress, hopefully decided now, before the sparring begins next year, and we have to have another one of those awful government shutdowns. The official said the president's plan boosts promises to balance the budget in 15 years, which is going to be tougher now that he put his tax cut, which, again, although this is not that doesn't help our debt right now, but I do realize the debt and the deficit are all two different things. So, yeah, Trump's hasn't really spent responsible, and that has pissed a lot of people off. A lot of people wanted to see probably the biggest Republican problem with the tax cut is that it kind of blew a hole in our spending processes because we made government cuts under Republican administration in the last 2 years in Republican Congress. And we also did a tremendous amount of tax cuts, which did not help us at all whatsoever. So Trump is going to right now seek $750 billion for defense, a boost for the military, because we don't spend enough on the military, and we're in so much danger as a country, and we just can't. No, I'm being sarcastic. We spend already way too much on the military, more than like the next 8 to 10 countries, I think is the number, and they're all our allies. We spend more than our allies, we spend more than our enemies, and our firepower is just so much stronger than everyone else's at this point. I mean, like, just the rest of the country in the world is saying, like, just like take it easy. But I mean, I think any liberal or any Democrat running is going to, you can expect them to say, we will cut the military spending, or at least not add any more to it for some of the more right-wing liberals. But I highly doubt we will see a liberal try and add, a real liberal or a leftist in any way, shape, or form, try to add on to the spending, which is what he's trying to do here for the military. He's going to cut non-defense discretionary spending by 5% below the cap, said an official in the White House who was unauthorized to discuss the document ahead of its release and spoke on condition of anonymity. Budgets are mainly seen as blueprints for White House priorities, but they're often panned on Capitol Hill, where lawmakers craft the appropriation bills to eventually fund the government if Trump signed them into law. So Trump's budget for the 2020 fiscal year will increase requests for some agencies while reducing others to reflect those priorities. Reductions, for example, are proposed for the EPA because environment's just doing great. So yeah, again, this is not going to be the final budget. This is Trump's budget that he has, that the lawmakers are going to go back and forth on. It offers funds for, the border wall and the Space Force are two of the most major things. But again, I'd be very surprised if that actually ends up making it through the entire next couple of years, because it's definitely going to be the next couple of months, because even then it's going to be started hammered down, worked on by the new Democratic House and the Republican Senate. They're going to have to do a lot of debating here, that's for sure. The official in Congress has ignored the president's spending cuts, said Congress had ignored the president's spending cuts for too long. The federal budget is bloated with wasteful spending, and the administration remains committed to balancing the budget. They did a great job of showing that. So yeah, Anyway, pretty dumb budget for the Trump administration. Sum it all up, and it's mostly going to cut things like the EPA, non-discretionary spending, add to defense, and of course, make money for the border wall. All right, we're on to our next story now, where satellites have been detected at a second North Korean missile site and the possibility for launch preparations. So this is all very interesting stuff, as the commercial satellite imagery near Pyongyang suggests that North Korea is preparing to launch a space rocket in the near future. So the images are at a site called Sanundong, a facility where North Korea has assembled some of its intercontinental ballistic missiles and satellite launching rockets, NPR reports. They're shared exclusively with NPR, these images, taken by Digital Globe. And rail cars sit in a nearby rail yard. 2 cranes are also erected, so there is some kind of signs of life at this North Korean facility. When you put it all together, that really looks like that's what it looks like when the North Koreans are in the process of building rockets, says Jeffrey Lewis, who's the director of the East Asia Non-Proliferation Project at the Middlebury Institute of International Studies at Monterey, California. He studied the images, and he said, yeah, it looks like we are seeing some sort of a rocket build here. And that, to him, he said, was very, very disturbing. And that was that's kind of the draw. That's kind of the debate there at this point. So news of the activity comes just days after other satellite imagery showed that North Korea has rapidly rebuilt a satellite launch facility on the country's west coast. Known as the Sohae Satellite Launching Station, the site has been used for several attempted space launches over the years, most recently in 2016. So, Sohae facility, sometimes called Dongcheng-ri or Tongcheng-ri, was partially dismantled after President Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un held their first summit in June 2018. Imagery taken on Wednesday, however, suggests that it could be operational again. And I mean, again, this continues a string of either unproductivity or lack of success in some way, shape, or form for Donald Trump on this front, because he has not been able to, frankly, get any kind of real help or benefit on this in any shape of the way. Like he's either gotten North Koreans to say, okay, maybe, or he's gotten them to pretty much rebuild stuff that they had taken down. So he's kind of taken a step back here, at least at this point. Lewis cautions, though, this is the scientist from the Middlebury Institute, says it cautions that it's impossible to know whether the North Koreans are preparing a military missile or rocket that could carry a civilian satellite into space. It's also impossible to know when any launch might happen, barring any kind of communication interceptions or something to that nature. So we are all kind of going to be kept guessing, at least on that front. So, yeah, that's the deliberations at this point. According to Planet Imagery, I can definitely say the train has left the station, says Melissa Hanman, a North Korea expert with the One Earth Future Foundation. But I unfortunately can't use X-ray vision to see what's on the train and tell whether it's a civilian space launch vehicle or a military ICBM. So, yeah, she's referring to additional images of the Sanundong site taken Friday by another company, the San Francisco-based Planet, that show that the vehicle activity has died down and that one of the cranes has disappeared, possibly the finishing of a production of some sort of a ICBM. All right, we're going to go on to our next story. At the moment, as Venezuela possible blackouts are looming as the country fights to kind of conserve energy at the moment. This is from the BBC. As a widespread power cut affecting much of Venezuela has continued ahead of planned protests on Saturday, as President Nicolas Maduro and other U.S.-backed opposition trying to oust him have blamed each other for the outage, as hospitals struggling to cope. At least one hospital patient died when a respirator stopped working. The power cuts, which started on Thursday, have been caused by problems at a major hydroelectric plant right now, so things are just, again, not being run well, and it is really hard at this moment to tell that who is to blame, because there's a lot of kind of government influence devoted, especially here on the U.S. side, which is why we have to be so careful as journalists and people who want to find the truth about these matters to just trust what the U.S. government says as what is to be. Like, we have to go from independent outlets, people who are not going to be influenced by the government, and who are not going to tell the government stories for them, if you know what I mean. All right, so yeah, that's what we are trying to deliberate here. As Venezuela depends on its vast hydroelectric infrastructure rather than its oil reserve for its domestic electricity supply, but they prefer to send their oil outwards. But decades of underinvestment have damaged the major dams, and sporadic blackouts are pretty commonplace. President Maduro, however, blamed the outage on sabotage. In a defiant tweet on Saturday, he vowed to battle the brutal aggression against our people, saying, quote, "We will never surrender." He still seems to be, despite some protests from some factions, he still does remain some support, kind of similar to the way Trump is here, where he has a significant and very aggressive opposition, but he does have a base of support in Venezuela that has yet to falter. So that is a interesting context to look at the situation. So power supplies in Caracas appear to be erratic on Saturday morning. Traffic lights in some areas were back in action, but the city's metro remained closed. According to reports, 14 of Venezuela's 23 states are still affected by the outages. El Nacional, the newspaper, reported. So Venezuelans, meanwhile, are bracing themselves for a weekend of pro- and anti-governmental protests as police threatened force on the road in Caracas, where Saturday's opposition march was planned. Even before the rally, some protesters were hit by pepper spray fired by officers, La Patilla news website said. So yeah, that's going to be very obviously incredibly intense situation. And it really kind of sucks to be in Venezuela at this moment, because on Friday, offices and schools were closed at some point to help efforts to restore electricity, according to Delcy Rodriguez, the vice president there, and some hospitals saw chaotic scenes as relatives tried to move patients in the dark to some medical facilities with emergency power generators. So, yeah, very, very disturbing stuff. Hopefully everyone there in Venezuela, hopefully no one dies from lack of power and stuff like that. So, yeah, we'll continue to follow the growing Venezuela situation for you, but now we turn to our next story, where President Trump and Michael Cohen are going back and forth on the pardon issue here, the pardon debate. As President Donald Trump, this from ABC News Now, tweeted that on Friday that Michael Cohen, his former longtime fixer and personal attorney, asked him directly for a pardon and subsequently lied to Congress about it, a claim which Cohen was quick to deny. So, saying he was never asked a pardon. This Michael Cohen story. So, bad lawyer and fraudster Michael Cohen said under sworn testimony that he never asked for a pardon. His lawyers totally contradicted him. He lied. Additionally, he directly asked me for a pardon. I said no. He lied again. He also badly wanted to work in the White House. He lied. Again, repetitive here. Very repetitive. That is Donald Trump. Yeah, so did he, though? That is the question, because we know both these men are pretty prolific liars. In testimony before the House Oversight Committee, Cohen stated definitively, "I have never asked for, nor would I accept a pardon from President Trump." That's the only public testimony he gave, so that's the only stuff we have to go on right now. When he and his legal team insist the statements remains true, Lanny Davis, a spokesman for Cohen, conceded earlier this week that Cohen did ask one of his attorneys last summer to inquire with Rudy Giuliani, the president's current personal attorney, about receiving a pardon. So that is what's going on. So he asked one of his attorneys last summer to inquire with Rudy Giuliani about possibly receiving a pardon. He said under sworn testimony he never asked for a pardon himself. So that could be a loophole, he could say, about the possibility of saying, "Oh yeah, I didn't really ask for a pardon, but we don't know. It was my lawyers actually." Yeah, again, it's a kind of it's not very solid. It's you really, in order to get someone lying to Congress, you really have to kind of nail them down a very hard faction, a hard mistruth, a hard misstatement, and that doesn't seem really to be happening here with this. But Davis said Thursday that Cohen stands by his testimony, citing language that Cohen used in front of the committee. Again, that's what we thought they were going to say. Cohen never asked President Trump for a pardon. His lawyer explored the disingenuous dangle repeatedly floated by Rudy and Trump in one meeting and never followed up. So pretty much what he said is he is now attacking Trump for kind of just teasing them with it, and Rudy and Trump never seem to really want to follow up on that front.